gotta.
The broadcast is live.
And here we go. Here we go. What's up, world? It's your boy KJ Bradley, and I'm here with the best chaplain in the world, my boy, Mr. Lance O'Neill. How you doing, Chappie?
I'm always good.
All right, so listen, this is our very first live, and we are rocking and rolling over about 7 or 8 different broadcast channels. You guys can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, all of the fancy pants social media apps. And we are Two Pogs, and this show is called Two Pogs Save the World. This is our, I want to say, our 9th episode, and we are currently testing our very first live episode. So as we get started, we're going to introduce ourselves, kind of give you a little bit of background of who we are and what we represent. Before we get started, I want to let you guys know that we will be talking about a couple of things that are controversial. And I want to express once again that the views of myself and Chaplain O'Neill are strictly the views of 2 individual citizens, and we in no way, shape, or form represent any government entity. I feel like that's important to say, because if we don't say that, we can find ourselves in some hot water, and we don't want to do that, right?
Oh, I don't want to. I don't know about you, but I have a job on the line.
So, all right. So before we get started, Chappie, you want to tell everybody how this whole concept came together?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you're not about to say, how do you share this? Because I don't have any clue how to. I'm on your YouTube channel, but I wanted to send it out to a couple of people like, hey, can you link to this? Nope, I don't have any idea how to do that. So, oh, you just sent it to me. Awesome. So now I just have to figure out how to send it to other people that I actually know, like Army What the F Moments and some of those guys. So here's how this kind of came about. Came about is KJ and I have known each other now for 8 years. Wow.
Yeah.
I was prior service, so I was enlisted and I was in the reserves. I'm a former MP. The only good MP is a former MP. And then I was MI, and I switched over to active duty as a chaplain to try to help soldiers. And KJ and I were in the 1st Field Artillery Unit that we were in, which is 427 Field Artillery in Fort Bliss, El Paso. After that, we went our ways. He retired. I continued on. I went on to San Antonio. He went and moved to Augusta. And then, strangely enough, I get sent to Augusta. Indeed. So we were like, you know what? We need to go. We need to go to lunch. And some of my former soldiers, once my soldier, always my soldier. And so we were like, hey, dude, let's go to lunch. I've done it with a couple of people. As we got together, we started just having really fun conversations about different political subjects. And so as we started going, now a friend of mine from Facebook named Ed, who I've only met, Ed Matthews, who's in the Bay Area, we joked about doing a podcast called Lance and Ed Save the World. And so as I talked to KJ, I was like, Ed and I are never really going to do it. He's a just doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. But, KJ, the way we're talking, there's not a big difference between how we could do this with inviting people into our conversations versus just doing it online. And it was kind of like, that might be a good idea. So over our conversations, we would go and we'd end up different restaurants around Augusta, which, by the way, if you ever want to come to Augusta and you ever ask anybody, where do you need to eat? The answer is nowhere. There's nowhere special here. It is an absolute restaurant desert. So we've gone some different places. Steak and Shake seems to be the one that we end up.
I think we landed on Steak and Shake. They closed it, by the way.
Oh, did they really? Oh,
yeah,
no. We got to find a new place then.
Yeah.
So it was all those Tesla charging stations out front. So we would end up sitting there for about 2.5 hours each time, just talking about different things. One of the times we actually wrote a script together, kind of came up with an idea. KJ, if you don't know, is really into production and trying to get into his production stuff, which when he does his intro, we'll come up with that a little bit. And we wrote some different things, just ideas. I love it because I can just come up with an idea and I can just go. KJ sits back and goes, Javelin, you just talk. This is fun. like we're doing right now. And so as we did these different things, we were like, what can we do? And we kind of just rambled. So like KJ said, this is our 9th episode. This blows me away. And none of them are online yet. They're coming. So you can go back and read
Yep.
it. So if we do anything where you kind of go, oh, I've heard this before, you might have heard it from us. If you've heard it from other sources, we try to tell you where we heard it from. We share books, a lot of books. We've come up with a lot of really, really good books that we're like, he'll read one. We had one where it was, I'm not sure what the book was, but it was interesting because I sent him this text, said, dude, you got to check this book out. I don't remember which one it was. And he sent back a picture of his audio from his audio book. That was the exact same book. So we were just like, oh, okay, right in line. So if you know what, I'll let you explain what the title of Two POGS mean. And then we'll get into what we're doing.
So Two POGS Save the World. For those of you unfamiliar with military vernacular, POG means people other than grunt. And that's basically the guys that you probably heard the top term FOBITs, or the guys that stay out of danger, right? So with me being a radar guy by trade and Chappie being a chaplain, we thought the name was apropos to call ourselves Two POGS. And the whole premise of the podcast is to take two guys with I would say similar but different political views. I think I lean a little more liberal on some topics, where Chappie leans a little more conservative. But we're both pretty moderate when it comes to ideas, and just kind of come together and see if we can find some kind of common sense common ground among two citizens, which is rarely done in today's society or in Congress at all. So with that being said, this podcast is going to be talking about mainly what amendment would you like to see added into Congress. We'll try to keep it under 30, 45 minutes, not to belabor the point, but we tend to ramble a little bit. Just giving you a full disclaimer. It can go.
Us? We do?
Yeah, I know, right? So we will do tangents, but you guys can catch the shows on YouTube. The first episode, unedited, is going to drop right after we finish this live. This one will be on YouTube as well, and then we'll drop the subsequent episodes here every 3 or 4 days, up until we get to about episode 8 to kind of get a feel for where we're going.
And the intent is for us to do, I think, every Wednesday or Thursday. Obviously, we have to be a little bit flexible with our schedule. The intent is every Wednesday night, but last night we were going to actually do this last night, and a very, very bad thunderstorm came in. Called Irene or something. I don't know. They called it a hurricane.
Yeah,
by the time it got,
I was very disappointed with my first hurricane. Everybody was touting it to be this big bad mamma jam, and it turned out to be a very, very just a very strong rainstorm, I would say. Like it other than the rain, it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe the next one will be better.
It's not the worst storm I've been through in Augusta.
I know that's right. All right. So without further ado, Chappie, you want to kick this thing off, man, with your amendment?
Yeah. So instead of the amendment, but real quick before the amendment, yes, we're going to get into the amendments that we'd like to see. I know KJ said of Congress, he meant of the Constitution, amendments to the Constitution. But I want to say that we need to recognize what the Constitution is and what the Constitution is not. Okay, that's very important. And I think KJ froze there for a second. Hopefully he's still on. But what the Constitution is it is a document that protects the people from the government. The government is not there to be the ruling factor of somebody's world and somebody's life. Okay, so let's be real clear. Amendments are there to also change. It looks like we lost KJ. Hopefully we'll be back in a second. Amendments are there to also add. The beauty, if you've ever seen the movie, I believe it's With Honors, and it's got Joe Pesci, and he's talking about, he's in Harvard. He's a homeless guy that's been brought in by one of the students, and while he's there, he's auditing a class, and one of the professors, the snooty professors, what is the brilliance of the Constitution? And some of these guys don't know. And Joe Pesci basically goes off on a speech, and he says the brilliance of the Constitution is it is for the people, by the people, and that it can be changed. So if there's enough people that want the Constitution changed, they can do it. So the last one, I believe, was changed in like, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember when the last one was. I don't want to say when the last one was changed and be off, but it hasn't. It's been about 40 years, I believe, since the last amendment was changed. So keep in mind, the Constitution is the framework of what the government is supposed to do, but it's also enumerates the limits of the government on the citizens. All right. And that's especially true of the Bill of Rights. So when we talk about the amendments to the Constitution, the first amendment to the Constitution, the first 10 are the Bill of Rights, which are, the first one is freedom of the press, freedom of religion, things like that.
Yeah.
That is not to grant the people the right, it's to limit what the government can do. So when we start talking about what we want for the amendments, the First Amendment, which would be the 28th Amendment, which I would propose, is something along the lines of this. Members of Congress shall not pass any law that they are exempt from. Okay. So that means if they pass a law like, I don't know, Obamacare, they cannot write into the law that they don't have to follow it. And if you're thinking, well, no, they would never do that. Yes, they would. Very specifically, they would, because they did. And you look at the hypocrisy of our government leaders. Now, remember, we're talking about two individual people here that have made their living from the federal government. Okay, so we see the problems. We know what the problems are. We're not calling for any revolution. We're not calling for any overthrow, anything like that. We are talking about two citizens who see some problems. And in this case, I have a major problem when Congress says one thing, but wants something special for themselves. We see it in everyday actions of Congress. Just to make a point, and this is both sides. Don't think, I call myself a conservative libertarian. I dropped the Republican Party in 2016 when Trump became the nominee. So I did not vote for Trump. I voted libertarian. And I see a very large hypocrisy when Democrats and those on the left vote for pro-gun laws when they're walking around being protected by people with guns. That's anybody on the left, not just Congress. When members of The View sit around and talk about gun control, and then they go outside and they have bodyguards walking around with guns. Well, wait a minute, I have a problem with that. So why should Congress ever pass any law that they are exempt from? That is the number one for me. So KJ, what do you think about that? Am I wrong?
I can agree with that. So my whole take on it is so you remember back when who was it got popped for insider trading? I think they were making a big deal out of it. I think they hit MTG about it, Marjorie Taylor Greene about it.
Martha Stewart got sent to jail for insider trading.
Yeah, but I'm talking about in the congressional. So they had a congressional meeting, and then based off the information put out in the congressional meeting, a lot of the members of Congress started selling off shares of stock, and
or buying a certain pharmaceutical company that was awarded a certain vaccine,
right?
And they all magically bought shares in that,
right? And it got leaked to the media, and it caught it. I think it hit the news cycle for maybe 48 hours, if that. But I think in terms of that, Congress should not be able to use that insider information to wedge their losses. You know what I'm saying? That's an unfair advantage they have over the American citizens, and I don't think that's fair.
There was a guy recently, within the last few weeks, who got charged with insider trading because he was following the reported trades of Nancy Pelosi. So Nancy Pelosi was going on and making trades that she had to, by law, she had to disclose.
Yep.
So this guy would watch what she did and then say, that's what I'm going to buy.
Yep.
He went and did it, made a lot of money, and the SEC came in and is going after him for insider trading. And his source was Nancy Pelosi.
That's insane, man.
So if Nancy Pelosi, and again, this is not against Nancy Pelosi. This is about any member of Congress who is using insider trading to buy Pfizer, to buy Johnson and Johnson before Moderna, before they come out and award these contracts. How is that not insider trading? So if you have a law that says you cannot use insider information. I've got a friend who's the CEO of a medical company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I called him up and hey bud, we went to high school together and I was just seeing how work's going and what's going on? How's it going? I saw your Facebook pictures. Seems like things are going well, yada, yada. And I say, hey, so what's going on with work? And he said, oh, Lance, I got to tell you, man, we're going, dude. I got something in the pipeline that's, I'm excited. And I said, really? Like in the next 2 weeks or next month or, he goes, yeah, dude, like in the next 30 days. Now I happen to know what company he works. Happen to know what he's the CEO for. Now, to be real clear, he's never done that. I've never talked to him on the phone. I haven't talked to him since high school. Just to be real clear, SCC, hasn't happened. You can check my records. But if I were to do that and buy any amount, I could buy one share of his.
Yep.
I could be charged with insider trading. And he could be charged with insider trading too for letting it slip if he knew that I was going to use that information and he get any benefit. So yes, basically it's all business. Yeah, exactly. But it shouldn't be. That should not be the norm. We should have laws that if I'm limited by the laws, the left and right limits of the law, then so should every single member of Congress. And if they break that law, now this is where I get into it, because if that's the law, they need to be, if convicted, immediately kicked out of Congress and banned from ever running again.
Yep.
Okay? I don't care who it is. You, Ted Cruz, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, zombie, Feinstein's handlers, whoever is passing that right, passing that law and then exempting themselves from it or breaking the law that they passed. And remember who passes the law? The legislature does. We can go back and do the whole cartoon. How does the law make a bill? All that stuff. So that would be my number one. Would be that Congress shall pass no law from which they are exempted.
Boom. Right. I like it. Number two. It's any law passed in violation of Section 1 shall be deemed null and void. You good with that?
Well, I want you to explain it. I want you to go into that a little bit so people know what you're saying.
All right, cool. So like we talked about, if any member of Congress was to pass a law that they exempt themselves for, I think Obamacare was the latest greatest big issue where Congress set themselves apart from the American people. So we can kind of stick with that one. So in the case of Obamacare, Congress said, hey, every citizen will have a form of insurance. You have to sign up. And then when it came to Congress, they was like, no, we got our own plan. Y'all don't worry about us. We're going to do our own thing. And under this constitutional amendment, if Congress was to pass a law like that again, it would immediately be null and void. So they wouldn't be able to do it. So I think that's we kind of beat that one into the ground. Section 3.
I like that.
Here we go.
I like that.
Yep. So here we go. Go ahead.
And that's what we already kind of said. If a member of Congress breaks that law, because if they pass the law, well, first of all, if they pass a law, this really goes a little bit bigger, because they can't by this amendment they cannot not pass a law that they're exempted from. So really, what this means is if they pass a law and they break a law, they're out. I think that's how it should just be. If you're convicted of a law, I don't care if it's a misdemeanor. You are supposed to be the keeper of the laws. If you jaywalk in DC, well, jaywalking's it's just a fine. But a misdemeanor, if you're convicted, not high crimes and misdemeanors, even though that's what it says high the impeachment statute says high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, is a misdemeanor not a misdemeanor? If you break the law and you're convicted, you should be immediately removed from office and never be able to hold. By the way, let's add members of Congress, the president, or any sitting justice to that. Definitely. You okay with that?
Yep. Okay. And I'll get into that. That's a perfect leeway into my amendment. So, okay. Cool. Yeah, man. No, I think you'd hit the nail on the head. Laws for Congress. I think that's more in tune with the originalist line of thinking when it comes to constitutional interpreters, right? There was no us versus them when it came to the government and its people, right? It was a government by the people for the people, right? Or of the people for the people.
It used to be, and I understand why, but you used to be able to walk up to the front door of the White House and knock on the door.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you were going to get an appointment with the president, but the butler would have come and opened the door and said, "May I help you?" And you would have said, "Yes, I'm, Chaplain O'Neill from the great state of Mississippi, and I'm here. I would like to hand this letter to the president. Would you give this to him? Or I'd like to make an appointment with the president, if I may."
Can you imagine?
You can't even get within. You can't get within 500 yards of the White House at this point with those new barricades they have up. Well, maybe it's not quite that far, but it's a pretty good distance.
Pretty close. Have you been to Washington lately? When's the last time? Have you ever been?
Yeah, I was up there about a year and a half ago. They put up the barricades. No, it was a little bit longer than that. I think it was still when Trump was in office. I believe it was prior to January 9th. So they need to have like a PJ9. I was there prior to January 9th.
What's going on? That's what I've been looking for. Doing a little bit of homework.
So prior to January 9th, yeah.
The wife and I went to Washington, D.C. in I think it was when 45 was still in office. And we got a chance to tour Congress and have a good time. You need me? No. Oh, no. Oh, no. Yeah. So we went to Washington, D.C. We got a chance to take a couple of tours, see the halls of Congress. It was a dope building, man. But then that'll get into a whole Trump issue, which we definitely gotta go back and look at. So
at some point,
when in terms of amendments, we were talking about my view for amendments, and I think one of the most important things that we should establish in terms of amendments for the government is term limits for all branches of the government, right? We just saw the instance of Senator McConnell literally having a reset again. Then you got congressmen like Feinstein out in California, a poor girl, God bless her. The engine's running, but nobody's behind the wheel. And it's just bad, man. And our POTUS, God bless him, man, but he can't even stand on his own 2 feet. It's just bad, man. These guys, no disrespect to the great, to the older generation. They did what they were supposed to do, but you're not supposed to stay a government servant forever, right? There comes a point, in my opinion, in time where you have outlived your service to the country, right? The country is evolving, generations have expanded, and you have to trust those who come behind you to continue to carry, to pass the torch to. And with that being said, I put down the following guidelines, and we can kind of talk about them back and forth. I think we're pretty in sync with how they go, though. So Section 1, obviously, no president will serve more than 2 4-year terms as POTUS. I think POTUS number 1 kind of set the tone for that. and it was kind of adapted as, okay, cool. If POTUS one did it, we're gonna maintain it. I don't see an issue with that. I think it's only changed.
Well, yeah,
Um,
and with this one, that's already on the books. We
right,
know that after Franklin Delano Roosevelt,
right,
but
and
it's good that as we're doing this, to just kind of reiterate that this is something that's good.
right,
That
and then we,
years in the White House is enough.
God, man, yeah, I can't imagine seeing. Never mind, I'll keep that to myself. 40, what is he,
But but
46?
but there are people. But here's the thing: there are people that could have seen Obama as a third year or a
Yeah,
third term.
that's third term.
So, and a lot of
Yeah,
people would have liked that. Personally, I would not have been happy because of the policies that come into play. And so I think there is something to be said for only 2 terms, simply because once somebody is entrenched in office, especially after the second term, I think there's ways to manipulate the system as
yeah,
president that you can potentially. And here's the other part. And tell me if you disagree with this, but I think this is part of it. Especially as president, if you win that second election, you don't have to worry anymore
yep,
about getting reelected. There is a
yep,
benefit for you going, you know what, dude? F it. I'm now
yeah,
going to do, I want a second one. I'm going to try to do the best that I can do. And I really don't have to worry
yep,
about running for a third term. And that's one of the biggest challenges with all the stuff we're talking about right now is every person in Congress is running as soon as they're elected, they are running for the next one. Every single time. I think KJ froze again. So I believe KJ's second one, if it's not coming up here, and we've talked about this before, KJ and I have, and we've kind of come up with some ideas. The second one is the how no and okay, there you are. So I
yep,
was going to go into the second one. So go
yep,
ahead and hit your limit for the House.
yep. All right, so where are we? Yeah, it's
There
still
you go.
getting the remnants of the storm. So here we go. So the House of Representatives, we know that they serve 2-year terms. They are typically in and out. Very, very seldomly you'll get, or well, I guess a little more than seldom. About 40%, 40 to 50% of them tend to stay past that 14-year mark. I think 14 years for a House of Representative member is good. That gives them enough time to kind of get the lay of the land, but not enough time to be entrenched, right? One of the things that kind of piqued my interest as I was researching this is after serving a 2-year term, they're qualified for federal benefits for life. So healthcare, the whole
Yeah.
nine. And I think that
Full
is,
retirement, basically.
yeah, and I think that is asinine.
Well, before I say what I think on this one, I need to ask you: is part of your term limits what you have coming up? Is part of it a total all rolled up? Like they can only spend X number of years in the House, X number of years in the White House, X number of years in the Senate, X number of years. So combined. So could somebody theoretically spend 14 years in the House and then
Yeah,
12
absolutely.
years in the Senate and then 8 years
Yeah,
in the White House?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, so if they can
yeah.
do that, I understand where you're coming with 14 years. I think that's too long. I don't like 14 years.
Really?
If it was
Well,
me, yes, I'd go 3 terms of 6 years max. Because when you have somebody in there for 6 years, what that does, at least in my opinion, and look, this is where we talk about it. I can convince you, you can convince me. The reason I like 6 years is because the House of Representatives is the lower chamber. It's supposed to be open to more people. It's supposed to be the original intent was kind of non-politicians.
yep,
So what that would mean today would be teachers and
yep,
doctors and ex-military guys and programmers
yep,
and basically just the citizenry who are interested in doing better for the country and serving their country. And when it becomes that 14 years, it turns into that this is my career. I am a career politician. And if you want to do that, and I have not seen your next one, but
mhm.
my guess is your next one is 2 terms in the Senate for 12 years or did you go with 3 and 18?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. We'll stop the suspense and I'll show you. Boom.
Okay, so you went 318. See, I'd go
Yes.
212.
Yeah.
I like the shorter terms, less amount of government service. So again, you could convince me, we can have this discussion. But for me, I would go 6 in the House, 8 in the year, I'm sorry, 6 in the House, 8 in the White House,
Yep. And
12 in the Senate. And because look, if somebody wants, after they become president, if they want to turn around and run for Senate, I don't know why they would, but they could. Sure. If they're in the Senate for 12 years and then they become the president, great. But they're only getting 20 years total at that point.
Yeah.
And even if you're in the Senate for 12 or House for 6 and then Senate for 12, you're 18. Well, now if you happen to be that one guy who runs the table on all three, you're still only 26 years of service. That's less than some sergeant majors.
Yeah. I'll give you that.
Sergeants major.
Sergeant's major. I think
I've never liked that. Sergeant's major. It is sergeant's major.
It sounds
so if you're saying the max federal service in the 3 branches of Congress, or I'm sorry, not the 3, but the 3, those 3 positions, because we're going to get to the Supreme Court here in a second.
Yep.
Is a total of, see, for you right now, you have 18 and 14. You're already at 32.
Yep.
And now you have the White House 40 years.
Yep.
It's too much. That's too much for me.
But
if you go 6, 12, and 8, well, now you're talking 26. I could be talked into that. I just think 40 years total federal service. Because think about somebody who comes in when they're 35. The first time they run is 35. We're right back in the same problem. They're retiring at 75 years old.
But I put a cap on ages, though. That's where we did. I put a cap on ages. The caveat would be whatever the mandatory retirement age is for the country, then you can't serve past that retirement age. So if they set the retirement age at 65,
are we talking that the age where full Social Security, because there's no mandatory, think about like in the military, there's no real mandatory retirement age, because even though the quote unquote retirement age is 62 for an average soldier, if you're a general, it can be waived. Millie's older than 62. If you're talking about a sergeant major that gets waived, it can be more, well, maybe not a sergeant major, but I know there's chaplains who are older than 62. Right. So I wonder if you were to say, tying it to life expectancy, whatever the age is, say minus 5 years, because right now the average life expectancy is 77.
Yeah.
And so the oldest they could be is 72. Maybe. But I think the problem with the age limitation there is we both know very, very, very sharp 75-year-olds.
Very much so.
So do I really want to limit that and say, here's a dude who is a federal judge, who is just sharp as a tack, who has no physical problems, no mental issues, could probably go out and outrun a marathon over me and you, and I don't want him serving only because he's 75. That's where I think I have an issue. I don't know if I like the age requirement so much.
I have the age set up because there gets to a point to where you've aged out of society in a way. You don't want to be the old guy, just like you don't want to be the old guy in the club, right? You're supposed to be, you come in, you do your service, you push the country forward, and then you go right off into the sunset. I know it sounds hard. It sounds crazy.
You know how bad that sounds, right?
Yeah,
it's Mr. Johnson, you've aged out of society. Come over to this pod and we will put you in and you will be liquefied for the new babies.
It sounds absolutely horrible.
The babies will be fed off of your materials.
Right. But if you don't, you'll have, a bunch of 60 and 70-year-olds building a future for a country that they're not going to be in. They're not going to be
right. But
they're building a future for a world that they're not going to be a part of.
Okay, and that's where I say if we go instead of the extended that you have, the 14, the 8, and the 18, and you go down to the 6 and the 12 and the 8, now you're talking about much younger guys.
We can do that too.
Almost necessarily. Because if you have somebody that, okay, so Dan Crenshaw, right? I think he came in when he was about 32-ish.
33, yeah.
Okay, so 33. So he spends the next 6 years in Congress. He's now 39. He runs for Senate. He does really well. He gets 2 terms in. He's 51.
Yep.
Now he's become a president at 51. Okay. And maybe he doesn't even do that. Maybe as a governor, he's a young Nikki Haley, I believe, is in her mid 50s.
Is she?
I don't know.
To Google.
Okay. So what? Hey, Google. Exactly. We're both. Who's going to win? We're going to see who's going to win. I don't know. I'm barely. How old?
51.
Oh, is she really?
51.
She's only a year older than me. I suddenly feel very unaccomplished in my life.
I think with the 6, 8, and 12, I think that kind of sets everything out because, okay, so if you go 6, 8, and 12, you put a cap at 35, right? Let's say we put an interest cap at 35, right? By 35, whether you want to enter into the House of Representatives or not, no older than 35.
Oh, no, you can't do that.
Why not?
Because if you have how many 35-year-olds are mature enough and wealthy enough and have enough contacts to even run? I mean, 35 is really, I don't mind if so. So what you've just done, if you say you have to be 35, is you and I can't even run for the House at this point.
We can run for the Senate or the president.
Yeah, but to run, the idea of the Senate is those are for more professional politicians. So somebody, if they're 6 years in the House, they're learning how to become more professional politicians. Right. Now they potentially go to the Senate, right? And I wouldn't have any limitation because, like, if I have some dude who goes out who is an extremely accomplished doctor, right? And he's in there and he's done he's only 30 by the time he finishes his residency. He's 40 by the time he really starts to get really well known and world renowned. And so he does his time. He's working until he's 50 just to pay off his student loan debt, his medical bills, his medical debt. And so at 55, he's like, you know what? I'm good. I've learned. I'm really frustrated about what's going on with the government. They just don't get the medical industry. I'm going to go run for Congress. And you're saying, sorry, dude. Nope, you can't do it. I have a problem with that. I don't like the age limits and I don't like the age limitations. Now, if you wanted to put on a health check, a mental health check for somebody that they have to pass to be able to pass a cognitive test, an unbiased cognitive test, you could talk me into that. But I don't like the age thing. And obviously KG's having some issues. And hopefully in the future we don't. There you go. So I don't like the age ones, but I do think if you wanted to talk me into some form of cognitive test that you have to be able to pass, that by an unbiased medical professional that says, yes, this person is healthy and happy and good to go, I don't have any problem with them running. But like right now,
so you would have to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would. So the cognitive test, then, instead of age limits, you would have the cognitive test before they take the oath of office.
Before they're even allowed to run.
Whether 35 or 75.
Yes.
In order to, but when you file your paperwork to be a candidate, you have to send your result of the test.
Yes. And it has to be, here's another part I would put that. Because you want to be in public service, it is a public document. You don't want now, I'm not saying everything in there. I don't need to know if you've had prostate cancer in the past. I don't need to know if you've had other issues, ear or a cleft lip or anything. No, I need to know out of the cognitive score of whatever test it is out of 100 that you've scored 90, whatever passing is. I don't know what that is. I don't know how the cognitive test numbers go, but you need to be able to actually sit through a dinner without messing yourself. Just a thought.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So would incontinence keep you out of the White House? No, not necessarily, but inability to think through and actually read a teleprompter without sounding like Porky Pig. Yeah, that's bad. Being led from one, being whispered by your aide. This is when you vote yes.
Yeah.
You.
That's probably
kidding me?
It's probably you probably need to wrap it up at that point, or well before you get to that point. I think.
So you want to go 25 years for federal or SCOTUS judge, huh?
25 years for folks.
See, this is where I also have a little bit of a problem with the seasoning. No, I'm still here. I have a little bit of problem with the seasoning. I like judges who have been on the bench for a while, who know what they're doing. So by this, you could have somebody really be on the bench and really know what they're doing and go up to the heights and be the best guy and now be named SCOTUS, and you're only in office for another 5 years. And my idea, we've talked about this, my idea would be a slotting system for the 9 justices. You have justice number 1 through 9. Number 1 being the next guy, whatever the number is, 9 or 1, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So right now in number 1 slot is, I believe, Clarence Thomas. I believe he's been in the longest. And number 9 would be Ketanji Brown, right? Is that how you say? I'm Justice Brown, correct?
She's the youngest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and it's not youngest by age; it's youngest by when they came in. So my idea would be that my idea is that it's a rotating every 2 years. So slot number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They all go up 1. So if, let's say, this was enacted, Clarence Thomas would be out after 2 years, and his slot would be filled. Now, here's what I would do. Everybody moves up 1. The new guy comes into slot number 9. And here's what I would do. Whoever the president is and whoever the Senate, the Judiciary Committee, they sit down before anybody's out, before Clarence Thomas is out, and they sit down and say, here are the justices, and we are going to rank them number 1 through 5. And so he comes through, Clarence Thomas goes out, the president can come in and say, here's the next 5. These have all been reviewed by the Judiciary Committee. We think they are all qualified. We think they are all good to go. Pick one. And the president comes in, he picks one, it immediately goes to the Senate for full ratification, and they are able to vote on it. None of this horse and pony. You're not going to have people that are unqualified. It's not a political thing. These are the 5 most qualified that the Senate committee, because look, if you want to go, oh, I like this guy or like, qualified. Now, what you've done is, okay, there we go. I can hear you though. So then they all move up. So now the White House and the Senate Judiciary Committee, what they're doing is they're saying who are 5. Now, if we want to keep 4, the same 4 plus 1, cool. Or this guy, well, he already got nominated to the federal court over here, so we're not going to use him, or he's getting too old or whatever. So this guy's on, this guy's on. Now, we don't know who those are. All we know is that there are 5 standbys ready to go at all times. Now, they've all moved up. So whoever's next after Clarence Thomas, he's now in the number 1 spot, or she. Well, let's say Justice Sotomayor, who's in the number 5 spot, goodness forbid, gets hit by a bus while crossing the street, and she dies. What would happen is the president at that point would go in and say, one of these 5 gets picked, and they go into the number 5 spot. Now, this is every 2 years. So that justice is now only in there for 10 years. The longest anybody could serve then would be 18 years. So you would have a situation where it would be less political because the Judiciary Committee would have to be more unbiased about who can be named to the Supreme Court and who can be in the wings, who those 5 lineup are, because you wouldn't want somebody who is blatantly biased. Okay, you would take politics. Hopefully, this would take politics out of the entire situation, because if you have the bullpen and you have these, I gotcha. So if you have these 5 in the bullpen, that would eliminate a lot of the politics that go into play. You don't have to have a situation where the president now has to name somebody and they have to go through the whole, political rigmarole that we've had. Okay. So by limiting it and slotting them that way, I think that, and then having the bullpen, you're going to eliminate the vast majority of problems of the politics of it. So I don't know if I would do no federal over more than 25 years. I would change it to no more than 18 years. They'd be slotted and they would have 5 bullpen ready to go so that up to 5 justices could die literally on the same day. And the next day, the Supreme Court could still be fully operational.
That's my thought. I like the 25 years because we have, hundreds of qualified federal justices, right, that are just hanging out at the federal level.
Do we?
Waiting. Yeah, we do. Well, they're still trying to slide. I think we still got.
Well, what I mean by that is, do we literally have hundreds of qualified judges that should be on the Supreme Court?
In theory,
I don't know.
Because once they get vetted at the federal level, hopefully they've been a state Supreme Court judge and then they moved up. So their record should speak for themselves once they get to the federal level. So once you hit that federal, now a lot of that comes into, eliminating the politics and not filling judges and yada, yada, yada. You got to cut through all that red tape. But ideally, you would have this huge talent pool of qualified judges in the Federal Reserve waiting at any given time. And even if we were to blend both our rules from that pool, you look at the case records of the, top 5 judges, and that's your reserve pool. And then you say, okay, hey, these are based off of performance numbers. These are, and then you can send it to a judiciary panel. We erase the name, we erase the race, we erase the political affiliation, so that it can be a completely blind performance based. And you say, okay, these are the top 5 performing judges from, or each region sends up their top performing judge, right? And then boom, there's your 5. And then
I kind of like that idea.
And then the POTUS says, okay, cool, these are my 5. We lose a SCOTUS. This is the guy. And then that's how you kind of blend it together.
So I like that idea, but if you're gonna have it blind, and so the president can come in and pick somebody blind, should the president have the right to sit down and interview and pick who he feels, or she as the president may go? Does the president have the right to sit down and pick who they feel is the most qualified? Isn't that the right of the president?
Nope, it will be strictly off a record because their record will justify their qualification.
I don't have a problem with it.
You can tell. So you can tell by the way they rule. You can tell which way they lean
Yeah.
politically based off of their, their rulings. And then,
Isn't that funny though? Isn't that funny what you just said?
that's
Guess
weird,
what
right?
you guess what you shouldn't be able to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, of course. But that's weird though. I mean, what they call it, everybody has their own bias or whatever.
Oh,
And
of course. Yeah.
it's just one of those things, but that is a way to kind of say, okay, hey, if we end up with 7 conservative justices and 2 liberal justices, you can't come back and say, oh well, the president picked them because he wanted to. No, these are literally the top 7 or 9 judges in the country. That's why there are SCOTUSes.
I
And then
really don't have a problem
yep.
with that idea. I like the blind the rating. Now, how you come up with the rating and some of those things, we can get future discussions. We've talked about some of those things. I don't know if we've talked about in past casts how to fix the judicial system and some of those things, but it's already been 50 minutes.
There we go.
Yeah. So instead of going into the future ones, now you guys could see how now if you go into the past ones, they're gonna run you 90 minutes or so
easily.
And this, I hope that you guys kind of get an idea of what we do here. I hope that as we go live, that you guys are willing to come in and pop up. Like if you guys said, "Hey, I agree with the 12 for the Senate, max of 12. I like 18. I don't like any age limit at all. I would up the minimum age limit for president because right now it's 35. I think the Senate should have a maximum of 70 and the House a maximum of 60. You could talk me into some potential age restrictions ish.
I can see that.
And some age requirements because I have a hard time with certain people who are in Congress right now that may have been former bartenders that maybe needed a little more experience at the lower level instead of having, questionable ways of getting into Congress. I think that can happen in certain districts, and that is not against anybody in particular. I think you see it both ways.
Yeah.
But we can talk about a lot of the other things, and that's what we want to do here. We want to talk about general ideas that are specific enough to be enacted. I don't think either of us are silly enough to think that just because we're doing this podcast, oh, this is going to change the country. Oh, that'd be great. No, but I would hope that at the very least, it encourages you guys to talk to your friends, talk to the people around you. You know what? I saw this podcast. It was really interesting. They were talking about limiting term limit, putting in term limits, or they were talking about anybody who, when they pass laws in Congress, did you know that they pass laws in Congress that they exempt themselves from? Did you know that they didn't follow Obamacare for themselves? That's crazy. Those are the type of conversations that I hope KJ and I hope, tell me if I'm wrong. I think I'm speaking for both of us.
Right on. Yeah.
That spawn these conversations over the next however long that we're able to do this. And I hope even if you guys look, if nobody else listens to this and we are just blowing smoke for ourselves, that's fine. We have fun doing this. Nobody else has to watch this. We're doing this for us. But honestly, I hope if you would find this interesting, that if we can get 12 viewers and they have 12 friends that they think this is interesting, and they have 12 friends and they have 12 friends, that's it. 4 powers. Now you're talking about in the tens of thousands of people that are watching this. This is not being done for us to make money. I mean, I would hope at some point we could do something with sponsorship but in the meantime, I'm wearing a homemade shirt from my daughter's soccer team. But KJ and I want to afford season tickets to the Georgia Bowl. Oh wait, no, we don't. That's not what it is. Georgia Bowl. I don't want to go see.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot of money, right? Yeah.
Expensive, man.
But realistically, what the goal is just to get people talking. And if you invite your friends to watch, great, cool. And I hope you do. And I hope people who see this kind of get an idea of where we're coming from, and they were entertained. And I think the dream goal for both of us is to eventually have Joe Rogan invite us on so we can talk to him.
That'd be one
right
conversation.
Yeah. Can you imagine Joe Rogan and be like, "Hey guys, you want to light up?" It's like, "Nope, I can't. Maybe you can, KJ, but I can't."
Like, yeah, I'm good. Nah, man. Yep, that's it, man. First live in the books. Thank you guys for coming out, checking us out, man. We appreciate all the comments that came in. Yeah, man. I apologize for the glitches. Hurricane Idalia is still kicking my my rear end.
Sure. Blame it on the hurricane.
Yep. We'll work on the technical side, man, and we'll be rocking and rolling. You can catch us every week, man. Next week, what are we talking about, Chappie?
I don't think we've decided yet, have we? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But do you think next? So here's the other thing: is there's going to be times where we are actually in the same room talking to each other. So we'll see how that goes too. It's not always going to be me in my house and KJ stuck in whatever building he is with the faux, bricks behind him.
God knows. Only God knows. All right, guys.
I'll tell you what. If there is something you guys think you want us to discuss, put it in the comments. If it's a good one, we'll give you credit for it.
Holy smokes. Let's get it on. I can only imagine. Anyway, I think that's it, man. We are up against it. First live is out. First unedited episode will be on YouTube on the channel, streaming channels right after this. Go check it out. Tell us what you think. Until next time, go mob. I'll see you guys later.